with me, I have Thistle and Dot Floral owner and designer, Jaime Dix. Hi, Jaime. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast today. Tell us who you are, what you do, and how you serve brides and grooms.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for inviting me. I'm so excited. Obviously, I'm Jaime, and I own and design Thistle and Dot Floral design out of my garage. So it's a nice home-based thing that I am doing. I design florals for weddings, also events, full service weddings, installations, bouquets, personal flowers, whatever you need. I can do it.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, so I have been asking our viewers and all of my Instagram followers for questions, and they have provided us with some really great questions. So the first one, I just want to ask, what are the hottest trends you're seeing in the floral industry at the moment? And where do you see the bridal industry or the wedding industry going for floral design this year?
You know, honestly, I see a lot of the same trends from last year. I think due to COVID, a lot of obviously couples had to change their dates. So I think a lot of couples are going with what they wanted last year. So a lot of those trends are still popular. So boho look, dried florals are still super hot. I have a ton of whites and neutral tones. White has always been pretty classic in the industry, but people are wanting to add in some taupes and some caramel tones, that sort of neutral earth tone in the whites, which I love. I think it looks really beautiful. Dyed flowers, bleached flowers, spray painted flowers. You'll see a lot of spray painted baby's breath, like hanging installations on Pinterest. I think shockingly, because of I feel like neutral and natural is popular, but some people like the colors that you can only get from dyeing. Statement pieces, backdrops, arches. I think a lot of ground installations are taking place over some hanging, I think. But I think we'll still see both of those. Texture. And then what I've really noticed with 2021, and I don't know if it has anything to do with COVID and the micro weddings, but a lot of my brides want smaller bouquets. You'll see a lot of styled shoots where they're a really large bridal bouquet, and that's because the floral designer can just let go and do just fun things. But a lot of my brides they're just wanting something still natural, not in a clump, but just kind of a smaller scale, which I think is really beautiful. And I feel like the flowers should accent the bride and not the flowers, taking over. So yeah, I'm excited. It should be fun.
I've heard the saying that says, here comes the bride, not here comes the bouquet.
Yeah. And
So
I mean,
I love that.
obviously I love a great bouquet, right? But
Yeah.
I think that you can make a statement bouquet and still have it not hide the bride.
Absolutely.
So
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. I have been seeing so much pampas grass. And how much have you used pampas grass the last year?
I honestly, I used it, I think it was 3 weddings last year, a lot of fall weddings.
Sure.
Pampas is great when it's fresh. And then when it's dried, it starts to shed. My garage is like complete pampas pollen. Whatever. I love pampas. I think you'll still see it, but I'm wondering if maybe it might be going out. At least my brides, there really haven't been a lot of pampas requests. So
very cool. All right. Okay, so then right off the bat, you said dried flowers, and you've done obviously real flowers. What would you say to a bride that's on the edge about doing fake flowers versus doing real fresh flowers? And how do you choose?
So I think that there is a huge misconception in the price of silk florals. Excuse me. Obviously, there's a definite difference between the silk flowers that you can get at, well, obviously like the dollar store or Hobby Lobby, and you can get really beautiful, very natural looking silk flowers. They are probably going to be more expensive than fresh flowers most of the time. I don't prefer to design with silks. I feel like they are still very stiff, and I like my bouquets to have movement. And it's really difficult to get that from a silk flower. I think one of the biggest things that people, the reasons that they want silk is obviously because they don't want their flowers to die. They've paid for them. It's their wedding bouquet. But there are so many awesome like people that are doing crazy talented things with bouquets. They press bouquets. Um, they make coasters, like resin coasters out of flower. Just there's so many crazy, beautiful things. I'm sorry, that I don't think you need to do silk. I think a lot of the photographers will tell them not to do silk. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think they just don't photograph the same.
Yep.
And from what I've seen, anybody that had silk flowers, it's pretty much collecting dust.
Yep.
In the corner. They kept it, which is fine. But I just feel like go natural and make arrangements in advance to send your bouquet to somebody to do something with it. One of my brides last year, she does like window art. And so she requested the majority of her flowers be something that can be dried. And she put them into this window art that's on her wall.
Oh, cool.
And I just think it's just so much better than having a bouquet of silk flowers sitting. I tend to think I probably would not want to design with silks if at all possible.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Very cool. I think, yes, as a photographer, I see those real flowers. There's just something about the realness of the true color popping in the pictures, and it just really adds that extra piece of wow to a photo when you have
yes.
gorgeous florals in the background. So totally agree there. Okay. So a couple is looking to book you. When should they start thinking about a florist? How soon in advance should a couple actually sign a contract with a florist prior to their wedding day?
Obviously, as soon as you can. Especially, I mean, it'll probably start to open up a little bit now, but with COVID, people were scrambling to, they had their calendar filled for this year, but you have your brides and grooms that had to change their wedding. So I think there was a lot of scrambling going on there. But I think it's like with every wedding professional, you really should lock those in as soon as possible. I think, especially if you're getting married in one of the popular months, so May, June, July, and then last year October was my huge month.
Yes, same. Crazy.
Yes. So I say as soon as you're engaged and because if you sign a contract, obviously you don't have to have a color palette picked out. You don't have to have anything except you like the florist style and you want them to do your wedding flowers, and anything else can be fleshed out from there. But obviously the sooner the better.
Interesting. Yeah, very cool. I'm saying to my brides now, like, book as soon as possible, because with COVID, everyone's getting pushed back, and like dates are filling so fast that you don't want to lose your preferred vendors to someone that had to reschedule a wedding date. I have a friend that's getting married, not this December, but December of 2022. And I'm like, you got to get stuff booked now. Like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I think people feel like they have to have everything picked out. They have to have a color palette. They have to have a style. You really don't have to do that.
Right.
Obviously you can sign the contract, and generally I send out a general proposal just based on the meeting that we had, but I make sure to tell them, I don't order your flowers until 4 weeks before your wedding date now because of COVID. So just get your name on the calendar and then get the details later.
For sure. Awesome. Okay. How, kind of jumping off of that question right there, how should a couple choose their flowers and colors? Once they have you booked, they have, their bridesmaid dresses picked out. If you're anything like me, I know nothing. I don't have a green thumb whatsoever. So I know nothing about flowers. Do you see a lot of brides like sending you pictures from Pinterest? Do a lot of them have in mind like what kind of flowers they want? How do you go about picking your flowers and the color scheme?
My main theme, my main piece of advice for brides and grooms and couples that aren't quite sure is just to trust your floral designer. So we hope that you have scanned our Instagram or been at a wedding where we've done work. Obviously, you've kind of picked us for a reason. I think that for color palette, I always tell them go with what you love. If you want bright purple bridesmaids dresses, girl, do it, right? Because I know on Pinterest now, all you see are the neutrals and that's fine. That's beautiful. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. I just, I think it boils down to this is your day. So if you want, we'll go with it, right? I mean, if you want purple, we'll design some flowers and beautiful jewel tones to go with your bright purple bridesmaids dresses. I don't want people feeling like Pinterest should rule their wedding. So go with what you love, and trust your floral designer, because it's because of COVID, the flower supply chain has been disrupted quite a bit. There were a lot of flower farms in South America that had to burn their rose bushes down because they couldn't afford to water them. I mean, it wasn't a product that could be set on a shelf and wait for COVID to be done. So we are still feeling the effects of that. So what I've been telling my brides is, it's best if you don't have a specific flower that you want. I mean, I will always ask, do you want hydrangeas because your grandma grew them? I'm all about the sentimental touches. But for the most part, I think that if you click with your floral designer and you trust what they do, the best thing is just to give them your color palette, kind of tell them, hey, I want it to be springy and, brunchy. I want it to be elegant and black tie, and kind of just let them go with that. My favorite, I mean, I love all my weddings, but a few of my favorite weddings last year were ones where the bride just said, hey, you know what? I don't like roses. Here's my color palette. Go with it. And those are the coolest ones. We throw, I'll be walking through a greenhouse and I see a cactus and I'm like, oh, that's great for Tessa's wedding, and allowing your floral designer the freedom to choose the freshest, best quality flowers that are available the week of your wedding is incredibly freeing. And I think in the end, you will get a more beautiful product.
Absolutely. I think it all comes down to like hiring people that you trust, because once you hire those people, you just need to trust that they have your best interest in mind. And if you don't think that person doesn't have your best interest in mind, then don't hire them.
Don't sign the contract, right? I mean, I just feel like you have to have a connection, and you have to know that your wedding professional sees the big picture. Because I do flowers, but I always ask them, have you booked your photographer yet? And by their photographer choice, I can tell their wedding style, right? Because every photographer shoots just a little bit differently. So it's all these little details that your professionals can take and run with. So I do think it's incredibly important to go with your gut on it. If you feel like someone is just going to knock it out of the park because you guys talked about it, and I think you just sign that contract and you trust.
Absolutely. Awesome. Great. Okay. So question from a viewer: how do you keep real flowers looking fresh all day long? Do you have any tips and tricks on that?
Okay. We do our best.
Absolutely.
Absolute best to keep your flowers fresh. Obviously, hydration is the number one issue. I think I'm assuming most floral designers, when I deliver the personal flowers, they're in vases of water that are filled just enough so that the ribbon doesn't get wet. And I always tell the bride or the bridesmaids, okay, take them out for pictures, pop them back in, right? I mean, that's the number one thing. The second thing is keep them as cool as possible. So if you are out in 110-degree heat, bless you, you can't expect the flowers to take that well. It's just something that obviously isn't possible. So the best you can do is take them out for the pictures. Don't leave them outside if you're not taking pictures with them. So most photographers, I think, kind of group the floral pictures together. So you do the bride and groom. And so I think all your flowers can then be moved in if you have an inside area, which is always best. Another thing is, and this goes back to the giving your florist leeway. There are some flowers that do not do well in heat or in cold. So using in-season flowers, because obviously when dahlias are growing, it's very hot. So most varieties of dahlias do great in the heat. So that, I think, goes back to trying not to force a flower into a season where it just isn't natural for it to be. Obviously, we can work with anything, but hydration and temperature are two of the biggest things. And then for like the wearables, boutonnières, wrist corsages, floral crowns, those pieces, we are very careful to choose the types of flowers that will do fine out of water. I condition my flowers, so it's a process, so that I'm hoping that they will last. In the end, it's just basically temperature, hydration, and conditioning, I think.
Great. Okay. One last question for you. What is your favorite thing about being a florist?
I am super emotional, and when I walk in with the flowers, I want my brides to cry, like not in a bad way. But I want that's like the end goal, right? Is when I'm like, hey, Anna, here's your wedding bouquet. You should just automatically be like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And tears should start flowing, right? Because I cry when I see you in your wedding dress. So you really should cry when you see my flowers. But I just think I love the process. I like watching it unfold. You know, when you first meet with the couple, they may not really kind of know, they kind of have an idea. And I love when I say, hey, how about this? And they're like, yep, that's awesome. That's something like that I didn't think of. Let's do that. I love the whole thing. I have anxiety. So of course, the night before, I'm like, oh my gosh, are these, so when I have my,
I think every wedding professional, the day before their wedding, they're hired to do, they're like, am I doing this 100% to my best ability? I want to make sure that, I'm serving my bride and groom to the best possible way. So
yes. And it's crazy how it wears on you. But I wouldn't give it up to do anything else. My brides that I have had since going out on my own, well, my couples, but it's mostly a bride. I just love them all so much. They're completely different women. They're completely different personalities. And I love to see the personality come out in the bouquet. It's just so much fun. And like I said, when you have somebody that is like, hey, I trust you, just don't use white roses.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. I can totally run with that. But it's just the whole thing. I just love it. And you get to know them, and you just can't wait for their dream day to unfold. So everything.
I love that we just you start as strangers, and then you develop this level of trust, and then all of a sudden you're friends at the end. And that's the best part about being a wedding day professional, is that it's not just this transactional business process. And if it is, you've probably hired the wrong people.
I agree. I always say I love the story behind the flowers. So like I said, I've had a couple grooms who have said, can you add this flower into somewhere, because my mom passed away and this is what she loved. Or my grandma, and we all know I'm a sucker for grandmas, my grandma grew hydrangeas. So I want hydrangeas. And I love that. I love the sentimental part of the wedding. I just love the whole thing. And I've met so many great people, wedding professionals, through this, that I never would have met before. And so it's just been such a blessing to me, and I just love every part of it.
Oh, I love it. I just love seeing your passion. Thank you so much, Jaime, for joining us on today's episode of The Wedding Crashers. I appreciate your time and your expertise in the floral industry. If a bride or groom wants to reach out to you, how can they find you, and what are the next steps they can take to learn more about you?
Okay, so because I work out of my home, I'm not real good on the phone, just because, if I've got kids, or it's just, so the best way, my email is hello@thistle.floral.com. You can also find me on Instagram, thistle.floral, Facebook, any of those are probably the best way. Email is probably my it's just preferable. I do have a form that is for weddings and events on my website. If you click on weddings, you'll see gallery and then info. If you click on info, it'll open the form. I always ask before I meet with anybody for a wedding or event, I ask them to do that. It just keeps me organized, and it allows me to move the process along a lot quicker. So that would probably be the first thing that I would like completed, and then we go from there.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate everything. And I'm sure brides will reach out to you if they have any other questions. So thank you so much, Jaime. Have a great day.
Thanks, Anna. You too.